Yeah, and there are, and this is being reported right now by the Wall Street Journal that, and this again is just coming over the Wall Street Journal, is that Evan Gershkovich is free. He is in U.S. custody, as is Paul Whelan, and that is just coming over that, according to these sources, both Paul Whelan and Evan Gershkovich are in United States custody. They are free right now. And again, Alexander, when you hear this, it's just so monumental. And when we think of Whelan, who's been, in prison there since 2018, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was sitting in the office that was responsible for Russia, U.S.-Russia policy, and the name Paul Whelan came up repeatedly after he was detained. This was going to be a difficult a negotiation. It took, for his family's, from his family's perspective, it took way too long. I'm sure there's enormous joy about the fact that he is now back, or he's going to be back with his family. Same thing with regards to Evan. I really also have to think about the injustice for the victims of the Russians. Those folks were experiencing some degree of peace with regards to the fact that hardened criminals involved in various different kinds of crimes were behind bars. So I'm sure that they are, saddened by the fact that these criminals are released on the Russian side. But all in all, we did what we need to do for our people to get them out. And we shouldn't think about this this kind of hostage swap in a broader context, with regards to, let's say, other criminal regimes. Russia is an outlier. Russia is a unique set of circumstances. We've always treated Russia differently based on the fact that it has a large conventional military, a large nuclear weapons stockpile, and they get their own kind of set of rules. We treat them differently. So I wouldn't say that this is going to result in an explosion of hostage taking around the world, because we wouldn't treat other regimes that took hostages, American hostages, the same way. But I'm really, frankly, quite glad that these two Americans and potentially other folks that I know and consider friends have also been released from wrongful detention. So I'll take it for what it is right now and be happy for those families that are getting their friends and family back.
Alexander, great point. And I just, we're reaffirming these are the two names that we are getting confirmation of. But this continues. And I'm just thinking I want to bring in Ken Dilanian with us. Ken, what is the latest on this?
Jose, I believe we are now free to report that there are 4 Americans who are being released in this prisoner swap, including the 2 you just discussed. Also, the dissident Vladimir Kara-Murza, who was, if you recall, was poisoned in Moscow, allegedly by the Kremlin back in 2015. And then a 4th individual, a Russian-American journalist for the U.S.-funded Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. So taking a step back here, U.S. officials are calling this the biggest prisoner swap since the height of the Cold War and perhaps ever. This involved multiple countries, including Germany, Poland, Norway, Slovenia, and the Russians are getting a lot out of this. It's a great day, obviously, for the 4 Americans and their families who have been released. But the Russians are getting, as has been discussed earlier in the hour, an alleged assassin who was being held in Germany and who was imprisoned after allegedly using a silenced pistol to assassinate a Chechen militant who had sought asylum in Germany. As well, the Russians are getting some American prisoners, people who have been lawfully convicted by the FBI and the Justice Department. The U.S. doesn't hold Russians convicted of espionage, but it does hold a number of people in prison with alleged ties to Russian intelligence who have been convicted of hacking, fraud, and other kinds of things. One of these people is Vladimir Klushin, a Russian businessman who was sentenced to 9 years in September 2023 after being convicted of participating in a $93 million insider trading scheme involving confidential earnings information obtained by hacking SEC databases. Now, he claimed to have turned down efforts to recruit him by the CIA and Britain's MI6. He is one of the people we understand who is being released in this swap. Another person being released is Vadim Konashenok, who was arrested in Estonia last year and extradited to the U.S. on an indictment charging him with conspiracy and other charges related to a global procurement and money laundering network on behalf of the Russian government. He reportedly had ties to Russia's Federal Security Service. He had not been tried and convicted. And I know, I cover the Justice Department, that really sticks in the craw of FBI and DOJ officials. They understand that once somebody is convicted and sentenced, the president has a right to commute their sentence, but they are loath to give people up who haven't been tried. But in this case, they're doing it. They understand why it has to be done. A third Russian who is being released today is Roman Seleznev, who was sentenced in 2017 to 14 years in prison after admitting to involvement in a $50 million online identity theft scheme. And again, Justice Department intelligence officials I speak to understand why deals like this have to be made, but they are concerned that they reward and incentivize rogue governments, to grab more Americans and Westerners on bogus charges. And that's one reason, Jose, the State Department has a level 4 travel warning urging Americans to stay out of Russia, and they cite the risk of unjust detention, Jose.